that is performative inclusion. Support that only exists when it's convenient, when it's safe, when you can make money out of it. Even by saying bride, we're not just using a word, we are activating a whole bunch of assumptions.
Yeah.
We assume there is a wedding, that is a heterosexual, that the person identifies as a woman, that she's wearing white, she is white, that she's young-ish, that she's holding flowers, that she's this delicate, emotional creature standing next to a taller man with a suit.
You're listening to For the Hearts Still Beating, not a podcast for perfect photographers, a home for the restless ones, the storytellers, the misfits, the ones tired of the echo chamber. I'm Björn. Let's tear the old rules apart and build something real instead. Let's be real. The wedding industry still has a representation problem. Too white, too straight, too curated, too damn safe. And if we keep pretending a rainbow hashtag and a token queer couple in a style shoot is inclusion, we're part of the fucking problem. I'm Björn. I'm a cis, straight, white guy. I've had the privilege of being seen and heard in an industry that was built for people like me. But neutrality, that's just comfort dressed up as safety. And I'm done pretending that's good enough. So today, I'm handing the mic to someone who doesn't play it safe. Martina Lanotte. A queer wedding photographer, an advocate, a storyteller, and a human who gives a shit. Their work isn't about aesthetics. It's about making people feel like they fucking belong. Whoever they are. However they look. However they laugh. We were supposed to meet in person earlier this year, but, life happened, and as it does, and still, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long, long time. In this episode, we talk about what real representation looks like, why love is love isn't enough, and how to build a photography business rooted in actual values, not just curated vibes. This is not a branding chat. This is a truth-telling session. So let's get into it. So Martina, it's so nice to have you, to finally see you, even if it's not in person. But I mentioned that we didn't meet in Berlin, so it's really nice to have you, and you're not so far away, like a few hundred kilometers just in Copenhagen.
Yeah, indeed.
So how are you today?
I'm good. I was really looking forward to meeting you. I guess we just have to do that another time, but sooner or later it will happen.
I mean, I can already tell that I do have a retainer for a session in Copenhagen mid-June, but I haven't heard anything from the couple again yet. So we don't know. They paid, but we didn't set a date yet. So it's a bit.
Okay.
I'm waiting for them to get back to me because you
we'll
got a plan.
See. Yes.
Yeah. So it's nice to have you. Actually, I wanted to talk to you early on because this is like my second, or maybe when it's released, it might be the third episode of my podcast. So it's pretty new, and all the thing is, I mean, I've podcasted before, and it's been a few years. So bear with me if the conversation is hard to follow because I don't know if I got ADHD. I don't want to diagnose myself on it, but I have a hard time sometimes following, and sometimes I interrupt people. So if I do that too often, please tell me to fuck off and to just you can just So why I want to have you here is because I feel like you have a voice that's in the industry. It's not being voiced often enough. I feel that many photographers in the space refrain from speaking their minds, from raising topics that may not bring them just respect. To topics that maybe the mainstream loves to ignore because it's easier that way. And because most of the people are not affected by it anyway. And so I think I first came across you I can't recall it. Maybe it might have been the Way Up North introduction for you. I'm not sure if I heard any podcast with you before that. Because I remember I listened to a podcast with Imagine before that you had with Scott, but I'm not sure if it was before or after Way Up North. But anyway, I bought your PDF, the representation, and I loved it. And I laughed more than reading it. I loved seeing it around anyway. Because at the same time, a friend of mine from Germany, she had a workshop where it was about inclusivity in your your branding, your voicing on your websites. And the workshop was hardly booked because it seems no one obviously seemed to care. And I hated that. But before we get really deep diving in, can you introduce yourself a bit to people who might not know who you are at all, besides being a photographer from Copenhagen? I did not mention yet that you are a queer person.
Yeah, I am a queer person, and that's, I think, it's a big part of who I am. And I'm also Italian. I live in Copenhagen, but I am Italian. And that's also a huge part of who I am. I've been in Copenhagen for 13 years now. So this is home. And yes, I am a wedding photographer. I work with international couples coming here to get married. So it's mostly elopements, intimate weddings, small weddings, that sort of vibe. Yes.
Awesome. I didn't know it was 13 years already. I knew that you were an expat, and I knew that I think I read somewhere that you moved to Copenhagen for an internship back in the day.
Yes, and that was in 2012. Yes. Yeah, right.
2012, the year the world was supposed to end.
Yes.
According to the Mayan calendar. Anyway, what kind of internship was it? Was it connected to photography, or was it something completely different?
No. It was because I have a master in linguistics.
Okay.
Random fact. And so I came here for an internship at the Italian embassy. I just wanted to experience life abroad. And I thought maybe I can teach Italian abroad, that sort of life. But then I found out it was super boring, incredibly boring, because you can't teach Italian to a university level. How many people can you have doing that? Just one, the professor at university. So you usually end up teaching to private courses, private classes, and it's more people like middle-aged adults, let's say adults, like people that only want to learn Italian to go to Italy and order coffee in Italian. So there is no growth, nothing against that, but you don't grow. You do this type of class today, and in 20 years, you're going to teach the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes. So I didn't like that. That's why I escaped and I went back to photography in a way, because this used to be my student job when I was studying. Yes.
Awesome. Because I just wanted to ask how photography did come into that. So you did take photographs during university to basically make some money aside, or what was it just a hobby back then?
Well, I just needed an easy weekend job. I thought it was easy. And I remember I met this wedding photographer. He was a local wedding photographer where I was in Perugia in Italy. And he basically needed someone to carry his bags. That's all, and I wanted to do something. I didn't want to go to a cafe or to a bar, that type of work. I wanted something different that I could like. And again, I thought it was going to be easy. Like, okay, I'm only going to work on Saturdays. Great. Until I found myself, at 6 a.m. at the bride's house for makeup.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go back to bed at 2 a.m. That's how intense that was.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I was completely hooked.
Because that was where I feel like every time you tell someone about that, you feel like you realize how crazy that is, and how a basic 9 to 5 may be the better option, actually.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, a cafe would have been like, 5 hours on a Saturday. Yeah. But I loved it. I loved the adrenaline. I loved the chaos. And even more, I loved the responsibility of it. The weight, the burden that you have of writing that story, because I'm also a very history nerd, and it's fascinating that as a photographer you do write a little piece of history, and I love that. Yeah,
it's amazing. It's actually something I oftentimes speak my mind about, that for me I always wanted to do something not just for the money. I need something that kind of gives me some sort of meaning, if you will, like something that may sound overly important or maybe bigger than it actually is. But I feel like when I started out taking photos, I shot concerts. So it was taking moments at punk and hardcore shows. And then my background is in graphics and advertising. And this was kind of meaningless because you were trying to sell shit to people they don't need. And of course, with my upbringing in the punk and leftist scene, it definitely really didn't go well with capitalist ideas of selling shit to people that they don't need. Yeah. And so it's nice that I kind of found wedding photography, which I never intended to do anyway, because it was so traditional and boring, and everything was so like really conservative, it seemed to me. And I always said, like, the only reason I would have to get married would be like either if I had a partner who may have to leave the country and I had to have the person stay, or like any tax reasons, like not to pay any more
Yes.
state money to the state that I despise, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so back to the day in Copenhagen. So you kind of realized you don't want to be Italian teacher. That's to bring it down to a really pretty basic, simple way of saying it.
Yes.
How did you start with photography back again in Copenhagen? Was it because my assumption, because I don't know how it was back then, but I know because I shot in Copenhagen a few times myself, and also basically almost every time, just but one, it was a couple from the LGBTQIA plus community, either like two women, two guys, and I think I only had one heterosexual couple in Copenhagen that reached out to me until now. So it was always queer people. So did you see an advantage in shooting in Copenhagen, especially for queer people, or was it something you didn't do? People might not know that, but as far as if I'm informed correctly, Copenhagen or Denmark at all was the first country, at least European-wide or maybe even worldwide, I think you may know better, worldwide, who was open to same-sex marriage, right?
Yes, and that was, if I'm not wrong, in 1989. So during the AIDS pandemic, I think
where
that
basically
was very
everybody
brave.
else tried to push people like you out of sight, out of mind.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yes, yeah, but I don't know if I saw any advantage in that. Not at first, because I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I started doing internships with other photographers, and I think most beginners, I thought, oh, I really want to do fashion. And then I tried fashion. And I was like, fuck that. I don't want to do that. I hate it. And then I tried all sorts of things. I did products. I did food I loved. I did real estate. So I tried portraits, corporate. I tried everything, but weddings were the best for me because I love the adrenaline, as I said. And so I started getting into that. And after that, I realized, oh, wow, Copenhagen is great. People actually travel to Denmark to get married because the bureaucracy in their country is terrible. And by the way, half my clients come from Germany.
It's okay. Interesting.
Yeah. I think that speaks volumes about your bureaucracy over there.
Oh, yeah. You don't have to tell me about that.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
Yeah. So they, especially expats living in Germany, they say, you know what, fuck this. I'm just going to go to Copenhagen, have a nice weekend, get married there. That's it.
Yeah.
But about the queer people, when I realized the potential that was there, I thought, nobody's talking about this. I imagine myself being a queer couple. If I was going to get married in Copenhagen, who would I go to? Because they all seem to be straight people and nothing is wrong with that. But I want to be understood. I want to connect with the photographers. So that's when I started creating space where there wasn't any space.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I think the first inquiry I had back in the day for Copenhagen by a gay couple, and they actually asked me if I was open to shoot that. I was like, of course I am. And I didn't, like I said, I grew up in this whole leftist punk culture where at least I hoped I would see that in my circle there was no homophobia or something. People were open-minded. I know that it's not across the board, and it's still the same because it's still just a mirror of society, but at least it was a scene that was open to question things, just to not accept everything as given. So for me it was hard. And then when I met these guys and in person in Copenhagen, and they told me their story about like they were from Hong Kong, and they told me how like they've been living together in the same flat for like 6 years, and they pretend to be cousins because being gay in Hong Kong was not fair at all. And nowadays, after the wedding, they moved to Amsterdam, and I'm so happy to see how happy they are now. And actually, I had the privilege of taking the photo of their first kiss ever in public. And for me, that was like in 2016. It was 4 years in my wedding in my wedding business career, I would say. It changed a lot about how I saw things, how I took things for granted, because even if you are, let's say, educated from other things, you still take what's given in the industry and you don't question it so much, because that's like I said, I'm a cis hetero person. I'm not affected, so I didn't care enough. Better outlook on things, and that things need to change. Just like by telling people, or just like couples have to ask, like, hey, are you familiar with it, or better even, are you fine with it?
Yeah, but I have a very similar story to that, because I think it was 2-3 years ago. I photographed the two men, also from countries, I think it was in Asia, where they couldn't get legally married. And, one of those countries where even holding hands isn't really an option. And it was just me and them, no guests. So we started this shoot at their hotel while they got ready. And at first it was very nice. It was intimate. There was good energy. But the moment we stepped outside, I could feel the tension, the energy shifted. And I asked if they were okay. And they said, I will never forget that. They told me it was the very first time in their lives that they were clearly a couple in public, dressed as grooms with a photographer. No excuses, no hiding. You can't just pretend that you're friends. So they felt completely naked and vulnerable. And they were scared that people would look at them and, say things and ruin their wedding day. And you know what? There I was thinking that of all people, I knew how much visibility matters, but I didn't get that. In that moment, I realized how much I still take for granted. Like, I live in Scandinavia. I live in a place where I don't have to second guess my safety. I don't have to scan the street before I kiss my partner. And that story, it stayed with me. It made me think that I need to use my voice, my power even more.
Yeah.
To
Yeah. And I think we all need these kind of moments, no matter if we would be supposed to already know before. Like, I mean, for me, it's like the only time in my life where I've been, like, let's say, sort of marginalized or whatever, was because of choices I gave myself. It's like because of being pierced, of having colorful hair, of being like leftist, of being outspoken about it, or maybe getting beaten by cops because I'm like outspoken on a demonstration, like things like that. Not because of my color of skin, not because of my gender, not because of my sexuality, nothing of that. And so I feel that oftentimes we take too much for granted of what we have, depending on, as you just said, because of how we like allowed to live in our countries.
Yes.
But it's interesting for me that this was, again, I would have thought that you may have come across this earlier than like 3 years ago. But let me get to when you started shooting couples in Copenhagen. Were you already outspoken? Like, did you start being outspoken about your own sexual preference?
I mean, there is the personal life and there is the professional life. And I think the professional life became more and more with time, together with the couples that I was shooting. Because at first I was like, okay, I'm queer. Who cares? Whatever. I'm going to do what everybody else does, But then with time, I had moments like this one that we spoke about. And I thought, oh, wow. Somebody has to do something about this. Somebody needs to make this a political thing, because we have to get into that. Somebody has to. And who can do that? There's only me, know?
Yeah. So basically, would you say that this person, like this experience, like 3 years ago, 4 years ago with this couple, did change a lot for you with being outspoken?
It did. I think it did.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's interesting how we basically can, at times, at least, bring it back to like this one changing moment. Like, it could have been like something just so small that for others they may not even notice that. Have you always been would you say you've always been like a political person in your life, or was it something just because, or just in this kind of topic?
No, I think I'm getting worse with age, or better, depends on the point of view.
I like, yeah, depending from which side you would look at it,
yeah.
right?
Yes. No, I didn't used to be this outspoken, but now just everything pisses me off.
It may be age.
Especially in 2025, yes.
Yeah, I mean, the world around us is not getting any better. Me and my wife Jana, we've just been watching a documentary yesterday on that woman, like a famous journalist whose daughter's wedding I was allowed to shoot last year. Had a documentation about Trump and the Silicon Valley billionaires and how they kind of undermine the government in the US and through that the whole world. And it's scary.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's scary even to listen to the news. Yes.
Yeah, it is. Yes, and again, like I'm in many cases, I will not be affected because I'm this privileged white cis hetero person, and I think it's important for people like me to understand that and to kind of. I think it needs more people like us to be outspoken for people who are not as privileged, and I feel that this was something that I learned a lot from your PDF actually, and when it comes to being more ally to the LGBTQIA community, is that things like I've been guilty of using this. What did you call it in the book? Was it pink washing? Like the love is love.
The rainbow washing.
Yeah,
Yes.
the rainbow washing. Right,
Yeah.
the rainbow washing. Pink washing is the feminism, right?
Yes.
I'm so bad with words.
No, that's fine.
I was guilty of that because I thought, yeah, maybe I use it because couples may look it up because they may look up. But again, because my friends use that, I'm like, maybe it's okay to use that. And then I started questioning it. But I'm going a bit too far already. I want to talk, I don't want to talk business so much, but I had this one question in mind. After you being more outspoken, is it something that you are for photographers or also for your couple when it comes to your couples? How do you speak to them? Like my question goes along the direction like, did you see a change in how couples are inquiring with you, how they are attracted maybe by you being so outspoken? Because I can feel, or I just assume that I would be more attracted by someone who's outspokenly fighting for my rights.
Yes, yes, but it's not about just that. Imagine that if you were a trans woman, you look like a woman, and then if you have a photographer that does not understand that, they might be still using the wrong pronouns with you. So if you hire a queer photographer, you have good chances that they get your pronouns right. So it's also about protecting yourself. And what I always try to communicate to people is that you can be safe here. This is a safe space. Nobody's judging. If you're a man and want to wear a dress, be my guest. Do what the fuck you want. And I'm going to be there with you. So instead of just expecting that you're a man, so you have to wear a suit. So people feel more free in a way, free to be themselves, free to be respected, people shouldn't have to fight with these things on their wedding day. But I've also been thinking about that for my own wedding, because I'm Italian, I'm Southern Italian. I would love to get married in south of Italy, but political climate like right now,
Yeah.
do you really want to do that? Do you want to go to a venue and maybe have to argue with the waiter that it's gonna ask, oh, where is the groom? Do you want to do that? Do you want to risk that? So maybe not. So it's things like that minorities care about.
Yeah. So you would say that your clients are noticing that from you being outspoken on your Instagram, on your website, or
yes, they are.
It's amazing.
I think they are, and it's the wonderful thing is that because people think, oh, okay, but if I post more queer people on my portfolio, then the straight couples are going to feel excluded. No, actually, because a lot of people care about this thing. So, they maybe want to hire you because I don't know, maybe their brother is gay, or the type of thing, or maybe they just care. So they want to put their money in a place where, they believe in.
Yeah.
So it makes a difference.
Of course. I mean, you don't want to like give your money to someone who basically stands for complete opposite values of your own.
Yes.
I remember, it's like a bit a different topic, but I remember like back in 2013 or 14, I shot a wedding where the bride had invited some former friends from school. Like they haven't seen for years, but they were there. And me and my second shooter by the time, like we were sitting on the table and she was like, hey, did you notice this guy's tattoos on this table? It's like, yeah, I noticed them. We took some photos, zoomed in on the photos, and we saw some like white wing tattoos. And we knew that it was not anywhere close to the mindset of the couple, but they haven't seen these guests for a long time and they did not know what they changed into. And so for us, it was like, oh, cool. How safe are we here? Like, how safe can we feel around this person? Like, even if it's just one or two persons on the wedding day, like, I mean, we still are like, no one knows us over there. We just booked there to be there. And when we leave, what happens when we leave? So it was weird. It was really weird.
Yeah.
And I assume that it's even harder as a queer person, like that's seen as a female queer person, because you are like even lower seen in forms of strength, body strength, like respectfully, all this kind of shit.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So
it is.
But it's funny that you say, or no, it's not. Maybe it's not funny. Funny is the right word. It's more like strange that people feel like the more queer people they post, the less straight people they will attract. I never had this. I never had this thought. Like for me, it was more like I want to show like as much variety in people as I can, because I want to be there for all of them. Because for me, it was never about how like who people were. It was like more like, are these nice people? Are these good people? And this is what I care about. And I remember like it's different issue, but I often had couples refrain from inquiring with me because they thought they were not cool enough. And I'm like, nobody should ask themselves this kind of question because it's just ridiculous. And it's even harder. And I know that I have friends of mine, like we oftentimes discussed like, hey, how do you kind of attract people, or not, maybe attract is the wrong word. How do you tell people that you are open-minded just by having them find your website? And for example, like one of my best friends, he would never use any search terms for LGBTQ, gay, queer, whatever. So because he wants them to be just as like any other couple. And I'm like, yes, I understand that. People, from what I understood from couples who booked me, they were looking for these terms because they wanted to be seen.
Yes.
And so it's understandable from the ethical point of view that you don't want to give them like a special position because you don't want to feel them like you are treated differently. But then again, for safety reasons and for just making it easier for people to find you, it makes so much more sense.
Yes.
And I feel that this is where your education for photographers is so fucking important, and where you can like help them show so much, because I feel that this is a topic I've talked a lot about recently, that because I've taken like a sort of a step back after the pandemic from wedding photography for like 2.5 years because of anxiety issues I had to deal with. So basically, when I stopped shooting before the pandemic, I felt like the wedding industry was on a better way somehow, because I felt like it became more inclusive. Like you saw more people of all body forms, of all gender, of all colors, everything. And now when I got back, I felt like all of a sudden everybody was like about like being featured in Vogue, and everybody was rich, thin, white, beautiful. So it's completely steered away, like a hard U-turn at some point. And I'm like, what the fuck? Why? How do you see the development in the industry? Is it something that scares you, or is it something I just see from a maybe wrong position, because this is what gets shown to me by algorithms?
I see. This whole Vogue thing. It's all part of a trend, isn't it? I mean, what was it 5 years ago? Icelandic adventurous weddings.
Yeah.
Remember that? Now nobody goes to Iceland anymore to get married. You know, it's outdated. So I'm hoping the Vogue Como Lake aperitivo vibe is gonna end soon. At some point, it has to end.
Yeah.
What I really hate about this is that we are still chained to this idea of the perfect couple, and we keep lying to ourselves, saying that we have to niche down in order to get the clients that we want, and you can only show one type of couple if you want to attract them. That's total bullshit for me, because what even is the perfect couple? Are we talking about the look? Does a couple need to look a certain way to be worth your time? In 2025, Like, why do we have to narrow it down? Why do we focus on looks and not on, I don't know, personality, emotions, on what makes us humans? Because the perfect couple aesthetic is bullshit. It's like saying, if your wedding is not in a decadent Italian villa, it's not worth it. It's like, really?
Yeah,
Are we there?
it's crazy, and it's one of the reasons why for a few years now I kind of hesitated to raise my prices again, because at one point I know I need to because of making a living myself, but I see that oftentimes the people I want to work with have like a budget they can use for that, and because of everything getting more expensive, they kind of have to maybe draw some money away that they would normally spend for photography. I would rather like work with someone. I mean, it's of course it's not being said that everybody who has money to spend is like not a good not like a good match for me. But I shot weddings that were like on a campsite, and it was more fun than like one of those 4 designer dress weddings I shot once in Portofino, where I was like, yes, it's an amazing place and looks amazing and it's easy to shoot great photos, but emotionally I am not connected at all.
Yes.
Because you don't get close enough. With the other guys, I spent a night in a tent, and the next morning we started yelling at some fascists on the rock festival because they were yelling like racist shit, and they put up like an Antifa flag, and I was like, these are my people.
Yeah.
And still they spent not much less than the Italian ones on me. It's just that they had different budgets for the day. But how do you see, from your dream perspective, how would like a true representation look like in the wedding industry?
That's a good question. And I think, I mean, what is true representation? I think is when people can see themselves fully. And I'm aware it sounds like a terrible cliche, like, of course, but it's really not. Because imagine you are part of a minority. Let's say you're, I don't know, a person of color, or your body isn't exactly what they call it, thin. So you spend your whole life not seeing yourself in movies, in media, in love stories, not seeing your body or your relationship or your culture or your skin color in this case. It's not reflected anywhere. And the message you get is that you do not belong here. And if we translate that to weddings, it means that you don't look good enough for a magazine, for my website, for a grand wedding. Why should you get a grand wedding if you are plus size? That type of thing. You don't deserve a designer dress because I'm not going to take photos of you and put them on my social media account. So, true representation is shifting that. It's about making space for everybody that's left out, not as an exception, not as a brave choice, but as a part of it. So it means questioning all the default settings that we have been handed from past generations, like gender roles, traditions, how we pose people, how we speak to people. Like, by doing what you're doing now, who are you unintentionally leaving out, and how can you do better? So that is the work that we have to do on ourselves, I think.
Yeah. And some of this is so easy. I mean, how often have I seen photographers like reach out on message boards like, hey, I'm shooting like a gay, like a lesbian wedding, I don't know how to post them. And I'm like,
Yes.
the issue is that you are still thinking in like gender roles. You feel like there's got to be a strong person and there's got to be a weaker person. And this is not the case. Maybe just ask them who is like, maybe someone is more like a leading person and the other one's not. Like this kind of stuff. Like for me, coming from like a feminist point of view, I always like when I have my couples like walking towards something, or like I want to have some, like, let's say I want to have them walk from point A to point B and I want to have their silhouettes. And oftentimes the guy would walk in front just because they're used to that. I'm always telling them, nah, I would like to switch it around because I want her to be the person who drags. And she's always in love with that. Obviously, because she like, who doesn't want to be like a strong person and wants to be seen in a strong way?
Yes. But I also do that when I pose queer couples. I say, this is what I want. One person, like, I don't know, hugging from behind.
Yeah.
So you choose
exactly
which one is the big spoon or the small spoon.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes
it's on you.
Yeah. I mean, of course, sometimes we make decisions just based on height or something, or makes it like, or maybe how the light is, and then you know that okay, he would be hiding the other person because of his shadow or something like that. But then again, for example, I had this elopement in Iceland of a gay couple a few years ago that was basically Copenhagen first and then Iceland. And one of the guys was really outgoing, he made some money off of OnlyFans aside. So he was like, we took photos for his OnlyFans account. And the other one was like really introvert. And I didn't understand the word he was saying because it all sounded like, and I was like, hey, does this mean good or bad? Like, because to me, all of this sounds the same. And his partner was like, yeah, no, he's fine. He likes it.
Okay.
Cool. And of course, in this case, one's more outgoing. It's easier to do that because then you would handle the outgoing person as the more stronger person, the one who's more active. Because maybe that's the role the person has in the relationship at all. And I feel that oftentimes it's not even like a lack of interest maybe that people don't have, or maybe like this may not even be gender or role like positions they have on their mind. Sometimes it may be like a disconnect between them and the couple, so they don't understand the dynamics of the couple.
Yeah, but ask them.
Yeah, I mean it's more than just showing up to a wedding day and shooting what's happening. It would be nice to understand, like just from before, like what are the people like. And for me, like for example, I do like my getting to know meetings usually are not about business at all, but they take like 2 to 3 hours because I just like to talk to them about life and talk to them about how they met and what they like about each other. And then you kind of get an idea of who's the more talkative, who's the one taking charge, these kind of things. And it helps you kind of understand them more. And I would like to have people think less in boxes, even though I'm guilty of it myself, because of course I'm a human. I put things in boxes because it's easier for us to differ and to understand. And there's so many things that we all still can learn. I mean, for me, it was something that I realized after I shot a few gay couples because oftentimes you would ask people like how did they meet and blah blah blah, and then of course with a gay couple or queer couple, that there was a point when they may have come out to family or public, and for me it's interesting. But then at some point I realized, hey, maybe if I ask that, I make it special again. It comes from the hetero point of view because nobody else would ask them. I don't know if it's even something people like in the community talk about, or if it's just something that everybody's been through, and maybe it's just something you gotta do because we live in this heterosexual patriarchal society. And I think these things just notice that, and maybe like question, hey, was it cool to ask that? Was it like, is it not funny? Is it like interesting? Is it strange for them? All these kind of things. Just maybe I'm a good example of that because I do so much things that I know I can do better. But do you see things that people do and in terms of trying to be more inclusive and more welcoming and more ally, but they're actually doing the opposite? Or maybe they don't enough?
I think they make mistakes. It's not like they achieve the opposite result. I don't think that. But I think that a lot of people stop at the surface. Like they do what feels safe, like, I don't know, the pronouns in the bio, the rainbow logo in June, the one queer couple in that portfolio. And that's a good start. Awesome. But it cannot be the end of that conversation because that is not inclusion, that's branding. And I get it. It's easy to start like that. But we are also seeing this thing on a much larger scale with big corporations. They were all about diversity and inclusion just a few months ago.
Yeah.
Where are they now? Now
Yeah.
that the political climate has changed, now that it's less safe to do that, where are they now? They are cutting all those programs. So they are pretending like it was never their fight to begin with. And that is performative inclusion. Support that only exists when it's convenient, when it's safe, when you can make money out of it. Yes, it's easy. And then, you retract.
It's like going to like, let's say, any leftist concerts, and inside the safe walls say something against Nazis, but when you go out, you're like,
yes,
no,
Yeah,
I'm,
exactly.
and then your grandma makes some racist statements and you are
Yes.
like holding it back because
Yes.
you don't want to deal with the family piece or shit like that.
Yes, so you have to do this when it becomes uncomfortable as well. Because if you want to be inclusive for real, you cannot just take. You can't take the trust of an entire community without giving anything back. Using the pronouns alone won't do it. So you have to change how you think, how you speak, how you see people. And that is uncomfortable. It should be. Because if it doesn't create a little tension, you're probably not shifting anything, really. So, real inclusion means seeing what you're doing, trying to do better. It means listening, unlearning, educating yourself. These things are not easy and they do not come natural to you. But, why should an entire community trust you if you can't even bother to learn about them?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. How would you say someone who has maybe like no personal connection to anybody from the community, how would they kind of get in touch? Like, because I can remember, I only assume it's got to be hard for them because they have, like, let's say they are open-minded, they want to do something, but they are afraid of making mistakes.
Luckily, there is the internet.
Yeah.
I don't think people can have that excuse anymore. You can research informations. You can find anything that you want on the internet. So just do that. Research, educate yourself. There are no excuses. You don't live in a cave. This is not the 90s. You were young in the 80s. In the 90s, you said I was a teenager in the 2000s, when the internet just started. And I remember I was 10 or something when Ellen on TV was being fired because she said that she was a lesbian. That was the extent of queerness for me because there was no internet at the time. So, now you have no excuses.
Yeah, we've come so far and still we got to deal with this kind of shit.
Yes. We're not there yet. Yes.
Yeah. Would you say, when it comes to representation, that not only you being a queer person yourself, but also your background in linguistics kind of shaped how you communicate? Or is it something that is not really of importance for that? Like for
No,
you
I think
personally?
it's been crucial. I think it's been crucial in my journey. Just to specify, because some people don't know, like linguistics is not a set of rules that prescribes how to talk, how to speak, how to write. That's what grammar does. So linguistics is analyzing how people actually talk, write, speak, regardless of rules. So you learn pretty quickly that reality shapes language just as much as language shapes reality. And so studying linguistics made me really aware of how loaded language is, like how much we take for granted. There's a huge amount of information, even in the smallest things. Like, for example, if I say good morning to you, Bjorn, I'm assuming that you share my same perception of what a morning is. I'm also assuming that you come from a part of the world where people greet each other that way. And I'm also assuming that good morning is the appropriate thing to say at a particular time of the day, you know? A whole bunch of things. So, and this is just good morning. Imagine what happens with words like love, relationship, wedding, even by saying bride. We're not just using a word, we are activating a whole bunch of assumptions. We assume there is a wedding, that is a heterosexual, that the person identifies as a woman, that she's wearing white, she is white, that she's young-ish, that she's holding flowers, that she's this delicate, emotional creature standing next to a taller man with a suit.
Yeah, and that
Right?
she wants to
Yeah.
be a princess.
Yes. And
Yeah.
all of this comes baked into a 5-letter word.
Yeah.
Language is a powerful tool, and with power comes responsibility. What are you doing with your power? What are you doing with your language? Because words can invite people in or shut them out. And I think, if something as simple as choosing words more carefully can help someone feel safer, more seen, more welcome, I honestly don't see why we shouldn't make that effort.
Yeah, it's so simple. I mean, when it comes, let's talk being seen. Like, for example, assume you are a gay, queer, lesbian, whatever couple, and you come to a website and the inquiry form says name of the bride, name of the groom.
Yes.
You are gone right away.
Yes.
Because you're not feeling seen. I mean, this is one case, but it's just not in this way to that. Like, I mean, if you, let's say, want to be more casual with your clients, but you use like a very informal language on your website all the time, it also is like a disconnect for them. It's not even. I mean, I think it's not even just about like being gender inclusive or people inclusive. But I just had something in mind that I found just a thought in my mind, because I haven't actually gone so deep on linguistics myself, but I think it can be like a great exercise for people to note down a word and then make some sort of a mind map with everything else that comes to mind when you think of this word.
Yes.
And then
that
of
could
course
be really useful.
And it will confront you with boxes you see yourself. And then you may not like everything that you see, because you may think of any racist things you may have grown up with, but you still have it somewhere in your mind connected to this word or to a person or to whatever. I'm not sure how it was in Italy, but I know like it should be, but I guess it should be the same. Like in Germany, when I grew up, like there was so much of really like racist and misogynistic humor in jokes around, and that's what you kind of take away from your parents, and they take it from their grandparents, and no one kind of questions this kind of stuff. And then you, at some point in your life, you kind of realize that you got fucked up by people who got fucked up by people who got fucked up.
Yes.
And so on and
but
so on.
Somebody has to break this cycle.
Exactly. We gotta break the cycle in some way. And I feel like we have this big discussion in Germany about like gender neutral language, about how people are afraid of change in language. And someone just recently said, I think it was like one of those German, like in Germany we have like a music type, like a music genre that's called Schlager. It's like really like it's not folk music, but it's like really like cheesy, like it's all about love, but actually they talk about sex. You know, this kind of like things that parents would listen to when they're like in their 50s, 60s, 70s. And one of the most popular guys from like the 80s, 90s, he said like he's inviting change in language. And he said, I am aware that we are not talking like Goethe or Schiller anymore. Or like if you go to the English culture, like it's not Shakespearean anymore. And there's always been like change and development in language. But for some reason people are so afraid of kind of unlearning what they learned just for the sake of learning something better.
Yes, because we said it is uncomfortable. Yes, but that's the point.
Yeah, and the thing is, it doesn't take away anything that you have. You know, it's like in politics, when someone asks for this and this right, like let's say we want to have migration rights for people from the outside looking for asylum, or we want same-sex marriage to be legal everywhere. It's not taking away anything from anybody. But still, people are afraid of that. And the same is with language, because they sometimes somehow feel like, "Oh, I cannot use this word anymore." Hey, if you want to use that word, use it, but question why you have to.
Yes, do it from a point of view where you are aware of things.
Yeah. So, do you see, like, let's say, what would be the easiest way for people to kind of get their heads out of their own ass and kind of like start working on something? Like, let's say I'm a photographer who's been in the industry for like 10 years, because I feel like younger people, they know what they're doing. Most of them are more exposed to these ideas anyway, I feel. So what can we say to someone who's been in the industry for like 10 years doing what they're doing, and they want, for some reason, they suddenly understand that, hey, I need to do better, I want to do better. What could be the first action steps to take to be more inclusive?
Well, first of all, I think, and this is valid for anyone, I think that as humans, we should all just self-reflect and not take for granted that whatever we do is good, is perfect. Question what you're doing all the time, because you're not alone in this world and you might be making mistakes along the way. So, just question, start from there. Because if you start from there, then there is room for improvement. If you start by saying, oh, but I've been in this business for 10 years, I know better. I mean, there's nothing to talk about, really.
Yeah. Let's pretend the person is open-minded. They're willing to change, and this is why they're listening to this podcast at all, because I hopefully don't attract assholes.
Well, if you want to be more inclusive, there are two things you need to do: language and images. That's it. Change your website, change the language, change the photos. It's that easy. So put more photos of queer people, of people of color, of people who don't look thin, diverse people, but not in a blog post that nobody's going to read. Don't write the post, oh, I'm an inclusive photographer, and then it stays there in the corners. Spread them around, put them, on your main page. Let your clients see that you are inclusive for real, that you take the risk of putting a queer couple in your main page, do that. And then language, there are so many gendered words, even in English. English I think, is the easiest. Because it's pretty neutral as a language. But there are so many words that, like, I don't know, bridal party. Do we have to use that word, or can we switch to wedding party? Another word is best man. Can we find another word in this industry? Like, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Why does the best man have to be a man? Why can't the groom choose a woman? And I've been in situations where the best man was a woman, and you know what happened? That guests were giggling like idiots, making jokes about, oh, the best man is actually a woman. Ha 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 ha. So funny. Like, what are you, 5?
Yeah. That's so true. Unfortunately, that's so true. Yeah. I think you had this amazing. I mean, I missed your presentation in Way Up North, but I remember that you sent it to me. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that, because I'm not sure you were allowed to send it out to me. But if Cole is listening if Cole is listening, hey Cole, nice to meet you again. You had this one sentence that I loved, that where you spoke about that people can name their cars, but they cannot make up their mind about names of people who are maybe like not associated to the gender they would see it to.
Yeah, because we give names to all sorts of shits, cars, I don't know, the television. We give them names. We call your car.
Wait.
Is my car.
Who gives a name to a TV?
No, I don't know. It's just the first object that I've seen.
Okay. I was like, okay, this is double ass crazy.
But people name their sourdough,
That's
and
true.
then you're telling me.
My wife does not. Happily, she's not.
Yeah, no, I do not do that either. But, then you give a name and a gender to a sourdough, and then you cannot say they, them for a single person. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Do better.
I know that for me, and we spoke about that before the recording, that sometimes it's the fear of making mistakes. Even if you're asking people for their pronouns, sometimes because you're not used to using them so much, maybe you are afraid of then again stepping on someone's foot by making it wrong. But I feel it should be similar to maybe like trying to speak any other language. People are appreciative of you just trying. This is what I feel.
Yes.
So I think none of us are born with 100% enlightenment of life or whatever, because we all grow up in this fucked up society that gets worse day by day, and it feels like sometimes it gets back to the Middle Ages when it comes to like communication between people, and people are just like, I mean, nowadays it's on the internet. Like 500 years ago, they would have gone out with like forks and fires and would burn down houses.
Yes.
Now you can just block them on Instagram, so it's easier. But I don't know. I kind of feel that how do you keep yourself sane in this time of age and working in this industry that it kind of seems to lose their inclusivity again, this sort of openness, and everything goes down back again to luxury pure white, straight, whatever?
No, honestly, I don't have an answer for this because it's hard. It's really hard. And especially this past year, it's been incredibly heavy for me, for queer people, for my couples, for so many of us. And there are wars out there, genocides, climate change, governments openly attacking anyone,
Anyone,
really.
yeah.
And, watching the world falling apart. And it's hard to witness all of that and still believe in joy, work with weddings and happy people, still believe in celebration. Even on a personal level, I wondered, is it still safe to be this outspoken? What if things get worse,
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't have a strategy for that. I'm trying to navigate it day by day. And I think what I can do is showing up for my couples as best as I can. And I guess that in itself is resistance, but I'm not doing it from a place of safety because I'm also scared and I'm also just trying to breathe, really.
Yeah, makes total sense. I mean, speaking from, I'm not quite fond of the political situation in Denmark right now. I know it's always been on the break of going to the right wing coalitions again, like Sweden was, or like Italy is, like Germany is. Like, I mean, we got the right wing party is the second biggest party in the country right now, and is the government we just elected, if they fuck up, and they pretty sure will, it might even help the fascists again, because then they are the ones where people see they are the solution. So it's definitely gets harder to be outspoken and not be afraid. And I know that I've spoken to many people who kind of, some started being more outspoken about the politics and some others stopped doing it.
Yeah.
And I mean, coming from this place in Germany where people wonder, like, hey, how did this happen 100 years ago? I'm telling you, it's like it happens just like it happens right now. People do shit and nobody says a thing. And yeah, but how do you, like, let's not try to be it like a suggestion to people, more like on a personal note. How do you personally do it? Like, is it to go home? Do you meditate? Do you do yoga? Do you just eat a lot of pizza and pasta? Like, what is it that keeps you sane? Just waking up next morning and being outspoken again? Like, there's got to be something that you have to do to be in balance.
Yeah, no, I don't do yoga, or I'm too restless for that. I do therapy. Yes. I spoke to my therapist about it, and we agreed that I can read the news like 1 hour a day, and that's it. And I had to try to stay away. And it's forbidden to read comments on social media.
That's the best advice you can give to anybody.
Yeah.
Because
so that's how I try to,
the comment sections is like where hell breaks loose. And I still believe that most of that is not real people. It's just,
I wish.
I don't know. I mean, I do label myself like a pretty misanthropic person, because I would say I hate most of humans, and then I meet some who are nice. This is like, it's easier to not be disappointed by people. Something deep inside me says, looking at the comment sections, no, it cannot be like, not everybody can be like that. There's got to be more people who have a heart and a soul, and who understands that every human being, or like, let's say, coming from a vegan, every living being on this planet just wants to have a safe life. And we don't need to endanger anybody else just to be safe on our own. Because who wants to go out and kick people's faces? Nobody wants to do that. I hope.
I hope you're right. Yeah.
I mean, I know there are people, but there got to be reasons why they do it. I don't think people get born as bad person. I think they just get fucked up along the way.
Yeah, the problem is that they can vote after they get fucked up.
Yeah, but I mean, what do you want to do? Do you want to have like some sort of like an exercise, like let's say we got to make a test if you are allowed to vote or not? Because
no, of course not.
Because then again,
investing more in education can help, I think.
And it definitely goes the wrong way with that. People, I know that in Germany, like when I was in school, people were like, "Oh, we don't have to hear about the Third Reich because we know about that."
You know about that because you had to learn about it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we should never stop teaching about that, because then it just happens again. But let's talk about weddings like a tiny bit. I know I love to be taking off, because I feel like oftentimes on wedding photography podcasts, I'm so bored by topics that they talk about, because everybody's talking about that. But I know that, and I appreciate having someone who's outspoken about ideals and things and toxic traits and whatever. If there would be one thing that you could forever erase from the wedding industry, what would that be?
Only one.
Oh, you can name more if you have. I know that sometimes people may not talk about anything like that, because they are afraid of making people in the industry angry. But I feel like it's the same with attracting clients who maybe not attracting clients anymore, who may be against queer couples on your websites. If I don't want to attract these guys anyway, so they can fuck off right. So and the same goes with me, like in the wedding industry. If someone hates something I say, I couldn't care less, because I would most likely not like them anyway. And I feel like this whole industry is sometimes a bit too over romanticizing that everybody likes each other, and then they all talk shit behind their backs.
That's true. But one toxic trait, I think it's the concept that the whole wedding is around the bride only. Like you hear it everywhere. It's her big day, the bride's dress, the bridal party. Here comes the bride. You know, I think it's lazy. It's pretentious. And honestly, it's unnecessary. Really. We have a couple. I see so many photographers using the bride only language. My bride's this, my bride's that, you know, and I cringe a little. Like, are brides getting married alone? Isn't it supposed to be a couple? What about the grooms, you know? And if you treat grooms like an accessory, don't be surprised if men don't feel engaged in the wedding experience. That's that true. Simple, you know?
Yeah, it's true. Yes. I mean, if you are trying to taking on more, like, let's say, lesbian, queer, trans couples, you may not have this so much again, because if you have two grooms, like, you would, if you treat the bride as a main attraction, like, what are you going to do on a gay wedding?
Yes.
Like, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, it's definitely true that it's a bride thing, that, but it's interesting. I wonder, maybe you know that, where in history did it change? Because I mean, coming from weddings being like this deeply patriotic thing, like where one guy gives his daughter to another guy, and she's wearing white because of being innocent somehow, you know, how did this shift to this innocent thing who was treated like a thing back in the day is now becomes a main star? Is this just society?
No. That has been no shift. You know, it's completely consistent. Because if there is, I mean, if your goal in life is to get married, you are the star. You know, a man has other goals, career,
yeah, sure,
buying a house, buying a car, whatever. It's not, you know how we say that it's the most important day of your life. We say that to women.
Yeah, that's
not to men, never to men, you know? So it's completely consistent.
I never thought about this, that it's never been said to men. Yeah, it's maybe true.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the best man thing that we said. We don't have a best woman. We have a bridesmaid who's just supposed to have flowers in her hand.
Fair enough.
The best man signs.
Yeah.
The bridesmaid doesn't.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's interesting. That's just like, and this is why it's important to still be questioning things, because no matter how open you may think you are, you will still forget about certain things because they don't matter to you. Let's talk about your book, your PDF that I mentioned earlier, the representation. Was that like, did you choose to release this because it was your way of doing things? Because coming back from linguistics and being like language being your kind of thing?
I wrote it because I got lots of messages asking, how can I do better? How can I change this? How can I change that? And I got lazy. You know, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to write a book.
Yeah, I don't,
So that's how it started.
I don't think it's being lazy, because I know how much effort and time it takes to
Yes.
write something and to lay it
Yeah.
out and and all of that. But what I loved about it is not just that it was really well done, just by it was well written. The layout was nice to look at, coming from someone with a
Thank you.
graphics background.
Wow.
Also, it's not that you're selling it to enrich yourself, but you're saying I'm donating everything I make from it to support the community.
Yes.
And I think this is something that's really, really, really important.
Yeah, I didn't write the book to make money because I thought, that's not the point of it. The point
Yeah.
is to spread knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to make money out of something, you can make so much easier things that are not
Yes.
like
Yeah.
edgy in quotation marks.
Yes.
You know, then you would, I don't know, what do people do? I just got another
Buy crypto.
advertisement for email templates or whatever you can do. Whoever is buying email templates in 2025 with ChatGPT
Yeah, I
around.
could have a job, 9 to 5 job.
Yeah. Would you say that there's points in your work as a photographer where sometimes it's hard to keep up with your own ethics when it comes to inquiries? Like, do you have to turn people away because they might not be your type of client, even if you want to be open?
No, I think they self-check out in a way.
Yeah.
They don't even write me. Like, I guess it's for you. But that's the advantages of being this outspoken. They don't even get in touch with you. It's a natural wall that you build. So it never happens that I have to say, you know what, you vote for Trump. No, because they don't even get in touch with me. So it's easy. Win-win.
Yeah. What would you say to, let's say, a younger self of you, or like any like queer photographer who wants to, I mean, I don't know if they would ever listen to this podcast, but if they do, like, how,
The
like,
rant of two old people.
yeah, like, how would they, like, how would you, like, say they can be empowered, or like someone or someone who feels like they don't belong in this industry because they're not seen. I know that I'm following a few people on Instagram, photographers who are from the LGBTQIA plus community, and they are pretty outspoken. There's like this, I forgot her name, unfortunately. I think she's from Scotland, and her account is In Love and Queer. And she's also really outspoken about it. And I love seeing that. And there's some people from the US. Then you have a person like Henry Tew from the US, who, he's not really outspoken when it comes in a political way, but he speaks about his husband and how they got the kids, and he's raising topics like for that. So it's a more, like, I would say, like, lifestyle way of tackling the topic. But what can we, as the old fart photographers, what can we do to help these guys be seen and to make their way?
I think what I would have loved to hear like 10 years ago or maybe more, it would be, you're not the problem. If you feel like you don't belong, it's not because you're doing something wrong, but it's because this entire industry wasn't built with you in mind. And that doesn't mean you don't deserve to be here. You do. And in fact, your point of view, your sensitivity, your queerness is not just valid, it's needed, because we need to elevate the conversation rather than narrowing down to a single segment, to, the Vogue trend.
Yeah.
And there is space for everyone, I think. I mean, even if you have to carve it out yourself, and yeah, it can be hard, it can feel lonely sometimes, but it is rewarding. And, there are other people, as you mentioned, out there. So just find your crowd, because the community is there.
Yeah.
Hidden, but it is there.
Would you say it can also help to see it less as something that's keeping you back from being uncertain or feeling like I'm not belonging, but maybe also being like something that can be supportive because you are closer to the community yourself, and you will be easier and more sensitive to people who also feel as clients that like they do not belong?
It's let's say that it's easy for me to speak because I live in Scandinavia. I am white, so I have a certain level of privilege. There are people that live in places where they cannot be.
Yeah, sure.
So, there are levels of things, but you don't have to be outspoken, You can also just find people who think like you without having to put yourself at risk.
Yeah. I was thinking of seeing maybe your own queerness as an opportunity to be more sensitive to people from your own community instead of what the industry is trying to tell them how it needs to be. Like no matter where you live in, because of course I'm speaking from this cis hetero just imagining kind of point of view. Like I feel like if I would have my circle of people and I would be getting married, I would be looking for a photographer. I would maybe ask around in this circle because I know I may feel like I don't belong in the industry overall because I'm not seen on the wedding blogs. But maybe maybe it's something that you hate that it happened. One of my guilty pleasures together with my wife was that we've been watching Queer Eye on Netflix a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it was really not really about being more open to issues of the LGBTQI community, but it was more about being open and vulnerable as a person. And I saw so many things that were parallels to what happened in my life, how I would treat myself, no matter what the backstory was. But is this also a thing where even if it's like, how does the community itself see these kind of TV shows? Or how do you see it? Not
This is where I
generalize it.
fall short because I think I watched a couple of episodes a long time ago and never again. Not because I don't like it, but it just I wasn't hooked. So I have no idea how to reply to this. But I guess the community is not a solid
This
monolith.
This is what I meant, like, because there's not just one opinion, of course. This is why I kind of steered away from the community to how.
Yes.
But is it is this something that's generally appreciated, or is it seen more as like a rainbow washing kind of thing again from TV stations?
From what I know about that show, I don't think it's rainbow washing or anything.
I would.
The more we see that, the better. Yes. We
Yeah.
need more. We need to see more of that and normalize it even
This
more.
was what I was thinking. It kind of normalizes things more. I mean, I can understand. Like, I haven't watched the movie yet, but I can kind of understand. For example, if it would be critical to see like a movie like Queer, where a gay actor is supposed to play a queer person, right? This is a bit weird, but yeah, I feel like the more it's being, let's say, the more the standard traditional white privileged person is exposed to anything they are not used to be seeing, I think it helps.
Yeah. Yes. And, some people from right-wing people, they keep saying that the more we are exposed to that, the more we will be gay. But you know what? I've been exposed to straight television all my childhood.
Yeah, and you're still not straight.
Yeah, didn't work. Sorry.
Maybe it was all shitty TV.
I wish, life would be so much easier if I was straight.
Yeah, I think people always forget about that. Can I go back to your business for a very short thing? Because like I said, I don't want to talk business way too much because I feel like it's like I'm not the guy to talk business so much. But I noticed that you shoot most of the time it's elopements and more short documentary days because
yes.
And I think that's because of Copenhagen, because many people travel there. They just do like the bureaucratic act, and then they want to have some portraits, and maybe that's it. Because this is what most of my jobs in Copenhagen have been to. I think it's just because the place kind of brings these kind of type of jobs. So it's not something you choose by yourself. So it's more like it came with time, right?
It's also because, imagine you're a couple eloping to Copenhagen, and what the fuck are you going to do with a photographer for 8 hours? That's boring.
Yeah.
It's not like maybe, I don't know, Iceland, where you take the car and drive to places. The city center is pretty small, so you can walk anywhere. In 1 hour, you've done everything.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you could go to, like, let's say, the outskirts, to any woods, like
Yes.
I mean, there's many nice like, for me, I'm a big fan of Denmark, and me and my wife, we were considering of moving to Denmark quite some time, but we often have, like, the west coast in our minds, because we like the rough North Sea, but then again, you cannot make a living there because it's just tourism, and what do you do in the winter? So because there's no one, and Copenhagen is just
Yeah.
fucking expensive.
Yes. Sorry.
So,
It's
but
true.
yeah, it was like always in our minds that we were like, maybe one day we're going to go to Denmark.
Yeah, it's a lovely place, Copenhagen. I love it so much. And working as a wedding photographer in the city center, it's fantastic that there is no advertising, no graffiti, no posters. There's nothing like that. It's clean, and it makes your job so much easier.
That's true. And I never noticed that, but yeah, it's right.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to remove things from the walls, nothing. You can just go.
True. It's funny that I never really paid attention to that, but yeah, thinking back to my photos, yeah, it is. And you have so many cool, like, for me, like, you got a lot of cool places. Like, you have the old town, you have, like, the Super
Yes.
Park, where I feel like you can really play a lot, even if it's just overcrowded as fuck.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
it's nice. And then you have, like, I know you have, like, this royal forests a bit outside, and so it's just wonderful places.
Yeah.
You just should not get overrun by bikes.
Not on your wedding day, let's say that.
Maybe not. I think I'm pretty through with my. Oh no, right. I got one left. I know you spoke about being seen so often, so I kind of feel like I know the answer of the question I have, but we haven't spoken so much about your photography at all. But what do you feel, or what do you want your couples to feel, like, let's say 10 years, 15 years from now, when they look at your photos? If people look at your work, let's say 20, 30, maybe even go 50, 60 years from now, maybe you're not working on this anymore. What do you want people to see when they see your work?
I think, for me, the most important thing would be that people don't see content, they see people.
Yes.
I don't want, like, the couple looking back at the photos, I don't want to feel like they had to perform for social media or pose for a photographer that says, this is what I want to create. I want them to feel like this was us, this was real, this was who we were, how we loved, how we looked at each other when a stranger was taking photos of us, because weddings for me shouldn't be a show. They should be about committing to each other, about being there, about presence, and if my photos can bring that feeling back, then, I'm done. That's good.
That's very smart words, because honestly, I'm guilty of being a mix of both. Like, I always see it as a collaboration with the couple, but of course, when I have, like, some very strange artistic idea in mind, I would I would direct them, and in the end, it's something I chose to do, and I'm just hoping that they will like it. But I think you said this super important word, and, like, the word content. I feel like content is, like, something that's, for me, it's so taken value of what we actually do, of taking photos for people to remember how they felt like on certain days in their lives, like how they felt for each other. And nowadays, I feel like it's not just in weddings, it's everything. It's just being seen or treated as content. Like, how can I get views from that? How can I get likes for that? Like, this sort of 5-minute dopamine rush of fame I can get before it kind of, like, sinks in the depths of the internet. Nobody will ever see it again, because no algorithm decides to show it up again.
Yes.
And yeah, I feel like it's getting a bit out of hand with that, and I hope it's gonna change somehow.
Yeah, I hope so. We'll see.
We'll see. Do you have anything to add? Anything that we did not touch on? Of course, again, I switched topics so much back and forth. Even if I had the structure this time.
No, I think I'm good. Yes, I think I'm good. I'm gonna save the very political rant for when we meet. I think I'm not sure this is for the listeners.
Let's hear it. I can cut it out.
Okay, so I'm going for this. I want to know from you how do you treat your photos, your photography in general? Because I looked at your website and it's super interesting, and you make it very political. So how do you work with couples from that point of view?
How do you mean? How do I work completely like in this political kind of way?
I'm thinking of, when people say that weddings, couples, this type of photography shouldn't be about politics.
Yeah. I don't think I really tackle it on the day. When I shoot, I use, because like I said, my background is in this whole punk and hardcore scene, where you're talking about things like veganism, anti-fascism, feminism, basically all of the good isms were a topic. So I was raised on these kind of things. Not raised, but in my teenage years, I kind of came from skateboarding to punk rock, and then from punk rock to like hardcore, and then all of these things. I became a vegetarian. Then one of my good friends by the time told me, if you're vegetarian, it's only half the way. You are still a lazy fuck because you're still eating cheese and eggs, and there's still millions of animals dying. And so this is how I kind of like made my way. And when I started shooting weddings, basically shot what I saw on the internet back in the day. So I kind of shot, like I said, I shot music shows before, and then I went to weddings. And I was not really putting myself so much into what I shot because I felt like it didn't really fit to what people wanted. It took a few years until I realized I can shoot a bit more freely and show the world how I see it. Like instead of shooting, let's say, the beautiful food on the table, I would shoot like empty dishes afterwards, with the leftovers, just to give my perspective on that.
Yes.
Shooting, like for example, when I shoot a wedding in Hamburg and I have like an area that's a bit more leftist, I would take photos of the surroundings, let's say, and that has stickers with political meanings on it, and just like putting these into my galleries, just to kind of like press my perspective onto my couples a bit. But I know that they would not book me if they wouldn't fit. But for example, I once said I will never shoot a wedding of cops because I have many weird experiences in my life with cops. Like one cop broke my nose when I was like a teenager on a demonstration, and then I kind of booked a wedding after like I met the couple, and they were lovely, and then I found out they were cops, both of them. But on the wedding day, like we shot in the Hamburg Sternschanze area. This is basically the epicenter of Hamburg's left subculture. Like for example, I don't know if you were already in Copenhagen when that happened. There was this youth house in Copenhagen that was squatted in the 2010s. The Ungdomshuset was a name.
Can't remember that.
So it was like, basically it was like a leftist squatted youth culture, and then it got evaded by the cops. And in Hamburg we have let's say like a solitary house to that. And also in Hamburg, and like in Germany, don't get me wrong about dates. There was a time, there was a thing where a refugee was arrested for drug selling, and the person, for some reason, nobody knows why, of course, nobody was it, the person burned in the prison cell at night. And the cops...
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows, of course. And there's like a big graffiti in this area about like with the person's portrait and saying it was murdered by cops. I took a portrait with these two cops in front of this thing, and they laughed it because they said, we know there's many bad people in our job area, And so this was a way of getting political, but most of the time it's more like me being like taking to like on this topic on Instagram in stories, talking about like, I don't know, it's music. Sometimes it's just in music, but putting up music I listen to because it's just in the lyrics. So I feel it's more or less showing me as some sort of artist in terms sort of way, plus sort of way I branded my business that maybe helps me. I think I could be even more outspoken on that because sometimes I look at other photographers whose couples they shoot and I feel like, hey, why do they end up with them? They fit way better with me. So they might not find me yet. But then again, sometimes I'm torn between this, how much of myself do I put in? Or do I leave some things behind?
Yeah.
Because in the end, I still have to make a living from this. So it's always hard. And I had this long discussion like with this friend of mine, Chris, who I had this workshop with in northern Denmark and earlier this year. And one of the things he spoke about in the workshop was that he wants to leave Instagram and all the meta connected apps.
Yes.
And we spoke a lot about this. And I was like, I totally understand where you're getting from. And I know it makes sense not to give them more power. And because like his reasons was like, hey, at some point, if they decide that we don't want to show your content anymore because you're not aligning with our values, you're just gone. And he's trying to take on to other to other apps, to other platforms to reach the people who might not be seen on Instagram anymore. Maybe like queer people, maybe like people more into privacy, whatever this may be. But this is, for example, like something where I feel really torn about. Like I would love to leave it behind, but I know I do still kind of need it maybe for my business. Maybe I just feel I need it. Maybe it's just completely wrong. But
but I totally get it because I would love to live that.
Yeah. But because the thing is, for me, I think if I would only speak to photography clients, it would be easier because my reach with new people on Instagram is not so big anyway. But because I also sell my education parts, I reach lots of photographers on Instagram because I feel like maybe I don't know how it's for you, but most of the people who follow me maybe are the photographers. I think this is also like the problem of the industry, that we are all following each other's, and this everybody is being jealous of the other person because of their clients, and everybody feels like they are not good enough. But we could just unfollow each other, and then it would be way easier.
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing, because wedding clients stop following us at some point.
I mean, I still have a few who kind of are still there, but oftentimes they are invested in photography, so it's different. So because many of my clients are also photographers, so maybe this is like this disconnect. I think what it can be when it comes to more political, it's just being really using your voice, and it's something I really don't like. It's not just something in the wedding industry. It's for me. It's in media overall, or let's say when we go to like this whole influencer kind of thing, that people do not use their audience for good things. Like they put out all the advertisements, but they are afraid of being outspoken about anything because they feel that they might lose followers or they might use clients who work with them. And I feel the more you stand for something, the more people get behind you.
Yes.
At least it's my
totally
and the ones who don't, like I said before, I don't care. If I tell people that I don't do that, but if I would go on now and say, hey, people who eat meat are murderers, if I would do that 20 times a day, everybody who's omnivore would leave. And then all the vegans would be like, yeah, this is a cool guy. But this is like something, it's on my mind, but it's not, I'm not so superficial with that. But I don't want to have racists show up to my work. I don't want to deal with someone who I might rather, I mean, I'm not like a violent person. I'm more like, but I don't want to end up on a wedding where I would much rather kick people in the head than be there.
Yeah, I totally get you. Yes.
I don't know, but I feel like people, for some reason, people find me. I have people inquiring with me and they have like this punk background, or people who then realize that we both share the same love about and passion about cycling. and things like that. And I think this is also where I feel like as a photographer and a business or like a small business, you got to decide, do you treat your brand or your business as a brand and you kind of like disconnect it from yourself, and then you can give it some sort of image you want, which I see most of the time now in the whole luxury kind of way, or you connect it more to yourself and try to be able to work with people you want to spend your time with. Because, and I feel like we only have so little time on this planet. So, and especially with weddings, because mostly it happens on the weekends in the summer. So it's maybe the time where you want to be out with your friends or maybe your loved one.
Yeah.
And since
Yeah.
I've been married, I definitely see my quality time on the weekends differently than being like 10 years ago when I was a single, maybe. You know, I think there's so many things to touch it, but as we said, overall life is political, and I feel that
Yes.
we should not keep it out of our business.
Yeah, it's so funny that people don't realize that, that everything is political. Daily life is political. Like everything we
every
do.
choice, every product you buy, it's a
Yes.
political choice.
Yeah, what you wear, what you
Yeah.
say, what you celebrate, everything is fucking political, whether you like it or not,
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And I feel that oftentimes it's easier to put it aside, but it's not really helping society or us in our lives.
but putting it aside, it means that I feel like you have to protect yourself. Like, as we said, queer people that are maybe, I don't know, Middle East, they cannot be outspoken.
Yeah, for sure.
Fine. But if you're safe and the situation around you, you don't like that, I think you should do something about it. Because when you say I'm not political, it usually just means that you're fine.
Yeah.
You don't care.
You're
The
not
system works well for you.
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually I had this case. I shot a lesbian wedding in London a few years ago. And one of the brides was German or Swiss. I can't remember if she was. I think maybe it was
German
Switzerland.
speaker.
Yeah, it was a German-speaking person, so it could have been both. And the other one, I think she was either Iranian or Afghan backgroundish. And
Okay.
we were not supposed, like, they had like cards on the tables telling people, hey, do not post photos of the brides on Instagram, because
Yeah.
the
Yes.
Persian person was not out to the family. So like not to all of them. Some people of the family were there and they knew, but most of them did not, and they were afraid of them seeing it.
Of course. But you know
Yeah.
how many times that happened to me? Like
More times than it's good.
One year I counted, and it was 25% of the wedding that I shot could not be shown. 25. And now, okay, I shoot a lot of queer elopements. Fine. But it's still, this is not because people were super private.
Yeah,
it's because it would actually be dangerous for
yeah,
them.
it would affect their lives in much harder ways than just
Yes.
privacy for I don't know, for
Yeah.
not being, I don't know what reason it may be. But yeah, it's something. It's hard. I remember that like the first 2 or 3, I think the first 2 were both gay weddings, and I wasn't allowed to show any of them. And by the time it was sad to me because I wanted to show it, because
Yes.
I wanted to have these type of weddings in my portfolio, because I wanted to show people, hey, I do see you, I am here for you. But how do you explain that to people?
No, but their safety comes first.
Exactly. I mean, for them, it was mostly about privacy, so it wasn't about safety. But still, I think the good thing nowadays is that this whole content day, like style shoot kind of thing, is getting way more around these days. Like when I started out, it wasn't a thing. And then when people did it, everybody hated on them because, like, hey, yeah, you're doing a style shoot because you cannot.
You're faking.
Yeah, but then again, like if you shoot at every other type of photography, everybody's making personal work. So why not make personal work with clients in a wedding space? And I'm not talking about shooting a wedding for free, but why not grab like a couple and just shoot them? It doesn't. You don't even have to put them in like nice clothing. They can wear whatever they want. It's just about showing them. And I think this is something that's oftentimes missing in a way. But yeah, it's like, I mean, for me, like, this is why I ask about these things about the wedding industry that kind of like fuck you up, because there's so many I hate. I don't even know why I'm still in the space, to be honest, because I hate so much of these things going on. But then again, I feel like we can do so important work for people.
Yes.
Like,
It's like, saying that you don't like the people who are running for government, so you don't go to vote. No, you have to vote and be present. People died so that you could vote, so just do it.
yeah, exactly. And it's, I don't know. I mean, I think we are all still speaking from this Western European privileged position. So it's, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, we chose to work in this luxury driven industry, and it is what it is. I mean, wedding photography is not something people need. It's always something people want. And so
Yes.
I feel
It's a
like,
luxury service. Yes.
yeah, so like it's totally okay as a photographer to kind of, even if I know that you said before, it's like that niching down is kind of weird, but I feel like I see niching down as a sort of making the choice of who I want to work with and who not. But I don't make this choice of like, I do not select people by how they look or by how they dress or whatever. More about how do they feel? Like, do they like, if
Yeah.
they
Yes.
like my work and if they can see themselves in my work, I am not the one who says it's not a good fit.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Niching down is okay, but based on what?
Yeah, exactly. Based on what? Yeah, and I feel that once we understand that, because this is a luxury product and it's something people want, it's not something they need, we can be so much of ourselves as we want in our work, because the right people will come. It's like in this movie with Kevin Costner where he builds this baseball field somewhere in the nowhere. It's a weird movie. I think he has a dream, and some famous
Okay.
former baseball player shows up as a ghost to him, and he tells him, if you build it, they will come. The movie is called I think it's called Field of Dreams. And so he builds like this baseball pitch somewhere in the cornfield. And then at some night, all those baseball ghosts keep showing up and they play baseball. It's a weird movie, but I kind of like, I kind of like this quote that if you build it,
Yeah.
they will come.
If you build it, they will come. Yes.
Because I feel that, as I don't know, I mean, for me, there are people who are into punk rock and they get married, even if I never want to get married myself, but now I am. So there's proof it happens. I don't know. I mean, you started as a wedding photographer in an industry that maybe back in the time did not see people who are like you. So you might not have seen so many other queer couples on photos, but you still chose to work on this space.
Yes.
And I can only assume that nowadays, with more people being shown and more people from the community being around, it must be empowering.
Yes. It is.
And I feel that the more we show us in this kind of way, it helps other people around us to be like that.
Yes.
And I think this is maybe a reason why it makes sense to not leave Instagram yet, because we can be
Maybe.
like this sort of light in the dark as long as they allow us to be, until they shut our voices down because we said something about Trump too much or whatever that is.
Maybe yes. But for now we still have that power. We don't have to just passively mirror the world. We can shape it. We decide what gets seen, what gets celebrated, what gets called beautiful, and that's not a small thing. It's power. And again, with power comes responsibility. How do you use it? Do you comply with the system or do you challenge the defaults? You can expand what relationships look like. You can make space for others. So why not do it?
Exactly, like be the lighthouse for them, and show them that you care.
If you build it, they will come.
It is, it is what it is, like that. It's cheesy, but also kind of true. Yeah, you know what? I think I will leave that in because I like that kind of part.
Okay, up to you.
I it's funny. Like, I had a similar thing with fair at some point, and I kind of noticed, like, maybe I should just follow my script and then like see where it goes. And because now it was more like a talk between friends, and this is what I wanted this to be like, less like an interview, more like a conversation. I don't know if people will enjoy listening that, and if I will keep this part in, like, let me know if you enjoyed listening to that. But I think these talks are missing because the podcasts, to me, they are always, it's easier about promoting yourself in a way, or everything is just about like, hey, how can I be like the next 6-figure business, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Or talking about representation just because we need to cover this topic, But for me, like, I would love to get to the core of people and understand why they do something the way they do it. And it's not so easy because at some point you gotta let your guard down and then make people see what's behind it. And for me, I can always only do my part, talk about like my anxiety issues, or when people acquire me for workshops, I will always tell them, yeah, you can do what I do, but you make more money now. Because if you do it like me, you may piss people off and you may not book as much anymore,
Yeah.
And this kind of things. What I feel is important is that people understand that it helps to have a supportive environment. And that can be like your partner in life, it can be your family, your friends. It can be a good network of people in the industry, like people where you can just send them a text and say, hey, I'm totally pissed right now because of this and that, and they will understand. This kind of things. And for me, it's always been like a helpful thing to have this network in the industry. Like, it comes like because of talking things off your mind, just like getting rid of something, but also getting jobs, like, or just sending jobs to other people. I don't know how many people I send your way whenever I get an inquiry for Copenhagen and people tell me, oh, you're not from Copenhagen, you have to travel. I was like, yeah, but it's really close and I love it. I will come. And they're like, no, but we're not paying for that. It's like,
Yeah. Thank you.
I mean, on the same hand, I'm trying to get my page ranked above yours, so people inquire more. So I gotta be honest here. I like Copenhagen.
Delete this podcast right now.
Yeah, I feel like people just need to see that, or people, maybe that's the last thing to say in this episode, that I feel like no matter who you are and no matter doesn't matter what you believe in, because if you believe in shit, I will call you out for that. But I feel that there's always people you can reach out to and you can approach and ask for connections and ask for help and whatever that is, advice or just empowering, as long as you do it in a nice way and in a respectful way. So no matter who you are at what point, I think you just should be feeling seen, and you should not like feel like you don't belong. Because I mean, if I belong in this industry, shooting something I hated from my guts when I started out, just because of the tradition of it and the whole blah of it. I'm still here and I'm still getting my clients, and I think the same goes for you, Martina.
Yes.
You are working in an industry that for a long time did not want to see you, and now
Yes.
you're doing really well in that.
Yes, indeed. But there is work for everybody, because
It is.
people are different. They don't all want the Como Lake wedding, Sometimes they want you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So don't let anybody else tell you what you need to shoot and how you shoot it. Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. My mind is broken. Thank you for
We need
being
to call
here.
Freud
I'm so
for
sorry,
that.
Martina.
Thank you for having me, Björn.
Shit, it's today. No, it was really nice talking to you.
Yeah, likewise.
If this episode made you uncomfortable, good. That means you're paying attention. That means something cracked open. Because weddings aren't just celebrations. They're reflections of who we are, what we value, and who we choose to include or ignore. If you've been quiet, time to speak. Yeah, if you've been passive, it's time to act. Yeah, your silence doesn't protect anyone, but your voice might. And if this conversation stirred something in you, let it. You don't have to get it all right. You just have to care enough to try. Because this work isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about choosing to see people, all people, and creating space where they feel safe, respected, and real. So show up, fuck up, listen, learn, do better. Just don't stay quiet, because if you build it, they will come, and they deserve to be seen when they do.